We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion to the super wealthy.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Friday morning, and it's the morning after. Right across the street from me is the White House. We'll be going over there shortly this morning. They were abuzz last night, proud of Papa Joe and the perform. I mean, look, what a performance! What a State of the Union address. Power 96 said he gave him a B plus. I think that's fair. I probably B plus, bordering on an A. There was a little touch of this or that, but bordering on an A. It was quite the state. Remember when we would be upset, and I'm still am kind of, when our favorite shows would be on back in the day, and the State of the Union would be, and it's all night. It's like, gosh, the state is on every channel. That's when there's only like 3 or 4 channels. It was on. But I tell you what, the speech last night was everything that Biden supporters, Democrats, and anyone else who might even be on the fence could have wanted and more. David Youngblood says an A plus. He knocked it out of the park. I tend to lean more toward what David's grade. I'm like at about an A. I could give him an A plus. David gives him an A plus. I wouldn't go that far, but I certainly get it. He was focused. He was determined. He was on point for an hour. I also enjoyed the fact. So it's one thing to walk the walk, as they say, or talk the talk, but walk the walk. And one of the things that, and we've talked about it a lot on this program, on the Black press, throughout the Black press, is we give this administration props for centering Black folks and Black issues. He made the campaign promise, and he's doing what he can to fulfill that promise. And I like the fact that he mentioned John Lewis, and it kind of got everybody in that chamber, even the haters in the chamber, it quieted them down for a minute, because he said, hey, you want to honor his memory? Well, pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. He talked about, and he had a guest from Bloody Sunday, and he said something that you don't ordinarily hear white folks say. Some of us was brought here, he said, in chains. In chains. I mean, the man was nailing them. Marjorie Taylor Greenface, wearing all the red and the MAGA stuff. And you're not supposed to wear a hat in the chamber. But she, of course, they don't follow any rules whatsoever, the MAGA folks. And she's yelling out at him, and he simply said, okay. He gave her her moment. And then he says, pass the bill. Send me the bill. He put him on the spot. He didn't waste any time in that prime time State of the Union address, drawing a sharp contrast with Trump. He didn't even mention Trump by name. He said predecessor, and he must have said that a dozen times. And instead of like a policy-heavy laundry list speech, Biden leaned into politics, even at times shouted at these folks. I mean, he had some fiery rhetoric. Early in his speech, he again went after the twice impeached, 4 times indicted, sexually assaulted ex-president without mentioning his name, and chastised those who failed to heed the threat from Russian President Vladimir Putin. He denounced those who stormed the Capitol. He did everything. It was presidential, and this is the thing that I always talk about: presidential. And I think that's one of the things, other than being black, that people liked about Barack Obama. That didn't sound right, right? I liked him because he was black. But he was very presidential. Obama was always presidential. Even if you're a critic of Barack Obama, which I am, you have to hand it to him. He was always presidential. And you can't say the same thing about Biden's predecessor. At no point during his campaigns, at no point during his presidency, I don't care if you love him or not, you have to understand and know that there was nothing presidential about Donald Trump. Last night was a crash course in being presidential. And you know what was interesting? I mean, it's almost a 70-minute speech, and I saw someone said, "Why are they starting it so late?" In our text thread, they know it's past his bedtime. Look, it was past my bedtime. Shoot, but what was interesting is that they was hoping and really trying to bring out this old 81-year-old stumbling as that racist sitting at the kitchen table gave in her response, dithering, she said. This guy hung around for more than a half hour after the speech. He stayed in the chamber, and I noticed, and I don't know if you notice, if you pay attention to such things, but the vice president is always seated next to the Speaker of the House, but they do not leave their positions, the vice president and the Speaker of the House, until the president leaves the chamber. So they stood there for more than a half hour as the president talked with Democrats. And at one moment, I don't know if y'all caught this either, he came face to face with evil, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And you saw the look on his face like, oh my God, this is what ugly looks like up close. This is what evil looks like up close. This is what racism looks like up close. And he came face to face with her. And basically, I mean, he was like, okay, whatever. It was really interesting to see this man at work. And of course, he even, look, he threw out the age factor. He made fun of it a little bit. But how disrespectful. Look at that picture you saw of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And when we talked about this a bit yesterday, the disrespect. So one thing and again, I always preface it by saying this. I cover politics, don't get involved in politics, even growing up, right? But I was always taught, you may not like somebody's politics, you might not like this, but if they're the president of the United States, or if they're a senator or a congressman or a mayor, you respect the position. These folks are so disrespectful. I don't see how anybody in their right mind looks at them and says, I want them to be my mayor, my congressperson, my senator, my president. How do you do that? It's all about power and hate. For them, it's about power. For their supporters, it's about hate. I mean, he talked about, the president talked about abortion and gun control, tax hikes on the wealthy, and he challenged the Republicans. And he was clear that Trump was pulling the strings. You saw MAGA Mike at times was sitting there with that crazy smirk, but at times he caught himself shaking his head in agreement with the president. That was really interesting to see MAGA Mike sit there like, and then catch himself like, oh gosh, I hope Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz didn't see me, or Jim Jordan. The president certainly had a bar to clear to alleviate concerns from some in his own party about his age and capacity to hold the demanding job as commander in chief for 4 more years. Well, he stuck to pretty much the script, but when he had to, and like that moment there, when he had to, he knew how to ad lib and go off script and was energetic and fired up. Hakeem Jeffries released a statement immediately talking about how proud he was to support the president and how proud he was of that speech last night. And it's a good question. Power 96 says, who was the black woman sitting next to Marjorie Taylor Greene? How much was she paid? Now, I noticed that woman, and I also noticed that she neither booed nor cheered nor made any expressions. She didn't make any expressions at all. Every time they panned the camera over there, I kept looking. I was like, who? I was same thing. Who is that woman? Expressionless as can be. But he says some other people my age. That was that was really, I thought it was kind of funny. But it was a really amazing State of the Union speeches, as energetic as we've ever seen this particular president, as resolved as we've seen this particular president. He says, we are the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draw from old and new, home to Native Americans whose ancestors have been here for thousands of years, home to people from every place on earth. And that's when he went into perhaps my favorite part of the speech, where he said, some came here freely. Some came here in chains. And he talked about himself. He says his ancestors came to America when famine struck in Ireland. He also mentioned, David Youngblood says, by the way, that was Rep. Gwen Moore. I didn't recognize Rep. This. She looks different, David. I kept saying that woman too. But Biden went on to say, some came here to flee persecution, some to chase dreams that are impossible anywhere but here in America. And all this talk about, and he attacked that too. This idea that immigrants are poisoning the blood of America. You all are immigrants, is what Biden's message was. We all are immigrants. And then, of course, he threw the ball in their lap because MAGA Mike, sitting behind him next to the vice president, got a call from, as Mike V says, the tangerine tyrant, told him not to move forward with that bipartisan border agreement that he agreed on too. He sat in that meeting at the White House and he agreed to that bill. It was a bipartisan bill. It is by everybody in that room. Moscow, Mitch McConnell was in the room, and they all came out of that room after some terse exchanges and then sharing ideas and then agreeing on this deal. Agreed that, you know what? We've just agreed on the most comprehensive and best border deal, immigration and border deal this country has ever seen. MAGA Mike got a call from the MAGA chief, Jim Jones himself, who's continually feeding him the Kool-Aid, Trump, and said, don't do the deal. He has not brought that agreement that Republicans and Democrats alike agreed on to the House floor. And Biden says, we can fight about the border all we want, or we can fix it. He says, I'm ready to fix it. And then you hear the idiot out of Alabama at her kitchen table talk about immigrants and people coming in here killing people, when particularly down in Alabama, they got so much blood on their hands, the blood of so many African Americans, particularly down there. And she has the audacity to sit at her kitchen table where she probably is putting sugar in her grits and talking about immigrants being dangerous. It is this stuff that it's just one of the billions of reasons why I said I can't get invested in you politicians, because you people who support you, they don't seem to have a mind of their own. That's one of billions of reasons. Y'all just crooked and disgusting. These people today are disgusting. These MAGA people are disgusting. Biden talked about the foot soldiers on the Pettus Bridge, and he broke it down too, because you remember during the Trump years, this idea of taking down Confederate monuments was not playing well at all. Didn't play at all. In fact, he boosted them up. He said those were good people. He demanded that the Confederate flag and everything about the Confederacy still fly high over the U.S. And when his people invaded the Capitol, resulted in the death of 5 law enforcement officers. For the first time in U.S. history, the Confederate flag made its way inside the U.S. Capitol. And Biden highlighted how the Edmund Pettus Bridge is named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. And he said these courageous individuals went across that bridge on Bloody Sunday to claim their fundamental rights. Too many people putting the sugar in their grits, Greer. Too many. Ask Dawn. She has a problem with it too. She has a big problem with it. I mean, it was quite the address. David Youngblood says, I take exception. I put sugar in my grits. That's the only way to eat grits. David Youngblood, I am extremely disappointed. You and I'm going to see David next week at the State of Black America address. We got to have a talk. And we will not be putting sugar in our grits after that conversation, David. We will not. and look, my wife says if you put sugar in grits, it becomes cream of wheat. Y'all are killing me here. You're killing me. But all in all, listen, David gave the president an A+. I tend to side more with him. I understand why Power 96 said B+. I understand. Either way, no matter how you slice it, this man rose to the cream of wheat without the lumps. You got to stop. I haven't had breakfast yet. I'm away from home, and this time my lovely wife is not traveling with me. I got nobody to give me a cappuccino, let alone give me grits. I'm really disturbed. I gotta go to the White House and listen to some things. Then I gotta go to New York and y'all are testing me this morning with this grit stuff. Cream of wheat. I don't like cream of wheat. My daughters eat cream of wheat. I think my wife eats it. I don't like it. I can't do it. I can't. I can't. I'm a grits guy. I'm with, as Power 96 says, I'm with the red bone. Grits and no sugar. We can't. We can't do it. And that's right. Greer's down with us too. She says she doesn't like that stuff either. It reminds me of, you ever see the Little Rascals? This is the first time I ever heard the word, and I know it makes me a little ignorant, but the first time I ever knew anything about what they call it, porridge. And they were serving all this porridge. And I was like, what the heck is that? Nonetheless, I am digressing in a major way right now, aren't I? Uh, we got other news this morning, and there's a few things that we're going to talk about before we go home or go wherever. You ain't got to go home, but we're going to talk about a couple of things. The DNA scandal in Colorado is threatening thousands of criminal cases. We're going to talk about that this morning. And the proposed ebony alert. Oh, they called it mush. That's what, right. Dr. Nicole says they called it mush. And Bobby says grits, eggs over easy. See, I said I am not at home. And my wife is not traveling with me. And y'all are making me hungry. A proposed ebony alert is coming to Massachusetts to highlight missing Black women and girls. Really, a great thing there. We're going to discuss that a little bit. And Iron Mike Tyson is stepping back into the ring. Indeed, he is. Netflix is kicking out so much money. Big fight this summer between Iron Mike and Jake Paul. We'll talk about that. And I got a bone to pick. I'm not going to go too deep in it because I don't want to be chastised. Maybe I'll get it out the way right now. I don't want to be chastised by Greer. And this is, let me preface it by saying, I'm not going to talk about somebody's guilt or innocence. That's not what this is about. But I got to go in a little bit on Kimora Lee Simmons. Kimora wanted to join in to insinuate something that's just not. Usher, as we know, as you may know, I should say, visited Russell Simmons in Bali. Close friends they are. Visited Russell in Bali. And, you know, Russell does his yoga stuff. He does his cryotherapy. My wife and I did some cryotherapy with Russell some time ago, maybe a year or so ago. And it's really something, it's really cool. I think it's cool. It's crazy, but cool. And one of the things I learned about cryotherapy was that, first of all, they put you in this, you can't even describe it as a freezer because it's like minus 200 degrees Celsius or whatever, right? But they tell you that if you have like any aches or pains, arthritis or whatever, now you would think that the cold only makes it worse. Because I know when it rains, if you got arthritis, it starts to bother you. When it gets cold, it starts to bother you. It freshens your blood and everything. This cryotherapy, you only have to stay in there for 2 minutes. Now, 2 minutes might not seem like a long time, but if you go in that freezer or whatever you want to call it, it's a long time. So Usher is doing the cryotherapy and the yoga stuff with Russell. And Russell posted that, you know, he's going through some things. And he is. I talked to him myself. And he's going through some things. And we're not talking about the allegations. We're talking about other things. And he mentioned how great it was to have Usher sitting at that time, at a time of in his need, sitting at his bedside. And so Kimora jumps in. And she goes, Not by my bed, LOL. And then she goes on to say, what is this I'm seeing in the news today? LOL, y'all some wild boys for real, for real. Uncalled for, particularly, it's a cheap shot. She's, she and Russell had their issues of late. And most Instagram users and social media users did the right thing. They dragged her. They dragged her. Slandering an unhealed person's name, one person wrote, while you keep their last name as your name, is quite insidious, one person wrote. And then somebody else wrote, if I were her, I'd keep real quiet when her husband, Tim, robbed $93 million from Malaysian banks and faces 25 years in jail. That's not hyperbole, by the way. He's alleged to have done this. He is facing some serious prison time. Countless others have been rushing to Usher's defense too, because you just threw Usher in there like that. Usher is only being a friend. Somebody says this was unnecessary, and this is one of the reasons Black men don't speak up, regardless of their situation. He was acknowledging, Russell was acknowledging Usher as a friend, a brother, at one of his lowest points. Hashtag mental health awareness. Black men's mental health is equally as important. I talked to Kimora about 3 years ago. And I also am privy to some other stuff that I'm not going to share, but she did with the anticipation of it being released, a major defense, hours long defense of Russell. Hours long. All recorded. So, Kimora, you might want to sit this one out. Especially throwing Usher under the bus. Usher's enjoying a wave of popularity, culminating with his Super Bowl performance. And all this was and how about giving Usher, forget Russell, how about giving Usher some credit here? His friend, in battle as he is, accused as he is, you might say, oh, he's despicable. These women said he did this and that. And you may believe it. And that's fine. This is not what it's about. Usher answered the call and went halfway across the world to be with his friend, to comfort his friend. Usher deserves no type of innuendo here, no type of slander here. I don't even know Usher, but I'm telling you that he didn't deserve that. And it was so refreshing that social media finally got it right. They finally got it right. Regardless of what you might think that Russell did, and maybe he did it, but this was not the occasion. He's not been convicted of anything. And again, people say, oh, he fled to Bali. Russell's in New York, Los Angeles, half as much as he's in Bali. So if he was fleeing from anything, he wouldn't be served with these lawsuits. They certainly didn't go to Bali and serve him. So come on, come off that. Come off that. Give the Black man a break once in a while. All right. I had to get that off my chest. For nearly 3 decades, Yvonne Missy Woods was Colorado's star forensic scientist, relied on by police and prosecutors to test DNA evidence in the state's most baffling of crimes. Her work was considered the gold standard by colleagues and helped put away famous, or infamous, I should say, murderers, including the Colorado Hammer Killer. Then in November, she abruptly resigned. The same day, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation said it had discovered anomalies in her work during an internal review and was launching a criminal investigation. The unfolding scandal, potentially one of the largest in the history of forensic DNA testing, is throwing the entire state of Colorado's criminal justice system into chaos. Because this is an individual whose work resulted or helped to result in the uh, incarceration of thousands of people. In fact, what they're saying in Colorado is at least 3,000 DNA samples that she handled. Now, those cases must be reviewed. And thousands of more cases now may be affected. And so and state lawmakers had to reallocate almost $8 million to the district attorney's offices for possible retrials and case reviews, along with retesting. And we know, even though it's Colorado, you know who's mostly victimized by stuff like this. Do we need to say it? And the question becomes, was she just sloppy, or was she purposely cutting corners for decades to put people behind bars? One former district attorney, a guy named George Brackular, said, "This is a huge, unprecedented mess." And he says, and I quote, "I want to know, what in the world did she do?" Now, investigators, they have not given a whole lot of details, but they know that this is, as he said, huge, huge. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation said that Woods had, in some cases, altered data, and in others, she analyzed samples several times, but reported, I should say, just one result. So she would report the results she wanted to report. Now they're trying to counter by saying that so far that none of the DNA evidence provided by her was inaccurate. But again, what they do is take several samples, because some of the samples, when they'll come back, it'll be a false positive, false negative, negative positive. And so people are going to be set free. And you know what's going to happen. There are going to be some set free that should not be set free. Boy, oh boy. We got to follow this. I got to know what punishment, what is her ultimate punishment here? I got to know. So turning out to, last year, California did this. They instituted an Ebony Alert for missing Black women and girls. And now a new proposal on Beacon Hill hopes to create measures to protect Black women and girls in Massachusetts. The legislative measure includes establishing a permanent community-centered advisory committee on missing and murdered Black women and girls, and creating a notification system, which is called Ebony Alert, which is similar to an Amber Alert, which is designed to notify the public when Black women and girls go missing under unexplained or suspicious circumstances. And so they want to put this into play. And what they're saying is that if a young person is from an upper middle class white family, a lot of times they have access to the media. And we know this. And they can get the word out when their person goes missing. And one legislator said, "What I do know about Black and brown people is a lot of times they don't have that access." And we have talked about that ad nauseum. We've spoken with, on a number of occasions, the Black and Missing Foundation, who really the work that they have done and continue to do. I mean, they've lifted that up so much that media doesn't give the attention, and a lot of times, oftentimes, law enforcement does not give adequate attention to the plight of missing Black uh, and brown women and girls. And Mike V says he's from Boston and this was necessary. According to the most recent data from the National Crime Information Center, about 141,000 Black children under the age of 18 were reported missing in 2022. 141,000 under the age of 18 were reported missing in 2022. And Black women over 21 accounted for nearly 16,500 missing person cases in 2022. And this is necessary. There needs to be an alert. When you're driving on the freeway and you see the silver alert, you see the amber alert, you definitely need to see this ebony alert. Our phones start pinging for amber alerts. Some of us, our phones start pinging for the silver alerts. The silver alerts, of course, for the senior population. So one lawmaker said there's a disturbing link also between human trafficking and the disappearance of Black women and girls, and he hopes that this proposal will bring much needed urgent action. Yeah, because one of the things that law enforcement we've learned too is, particularly from the Black and Missing Foundation, one of the things that law enforcement does when a person of color is reported missing, they immediately say or treat it as, oh, they just ran away. Or if it's a female, especially if it's a female, oh, she probably went and staying with her boyfriend or her baby daddy. It's so racist. And so they're acting to do something they're acting on this and trying to do something in Massachusetts. And so hopefully it's implemented as soon as humanly possible. We'll keep you posted on that too. Just like in California, that has started. So this ebony alert, hopefully it becomes a nationwide situation. And Bobby Henry says, let's go right to the legislator that said that unfortunately don't have the media and remind them just who the Black press is. Yeah, and so again, of course, we are an amazing tool for something like that as well. But the point too here, Bobby Henry, is that the police don't even list them as missing. Whereas they hurry press releases out on other folks that go missing. Iron Mike Tyson is coming back into the ring. Netflix is going to have a huge special in the summertime, and it's going to take place. He's going to fight Jake Paul at the huge Dallas Cowboys Stadium. It's unbelievable. Jake Paul happens to be 27 years old, by the way. Mike is 57 years old. 57 years old. Somebody said it's going to be the most polarizing spectacle yet of the recent crossover boxing craze. The fight will take place July 20th at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. And the main event of a card that, of course, we said will air on Netflix. Apparently, folks are already buying up seats and buying up airtime and everything else. They are going to make a whole lot of money. Mike made a lot of money in his career before he bit Evander Holyfield's ears off. But there are some estimates that he could make more in this fight than he did over his entire career. It's Mike Tyson. You ever watch Mike Tyson's hot boxing talk show? Power 96 and nah, bro, I'm not watching. Neither am I. You ever watch his hot boxing though? I caught like an episode when he had Ray Leonard on. It was the most hilarious thing I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, Mike Tyson was sitting there smoking weed and laughing, and it was Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns that he had on, and he was trying to egg them on to fight right there. Mike Tyson is a character. He's become as much of a comedian as he is a boxer. So, oh boy, Tyson, of course, was the undisputed heavyweight champion from 1987 to 1990 when, shockingly, I think it was in Japan, David, that Buster Douglas knocked him out. Shocking, as Ali would say, he shocked the world. Tyson was something else. He was ferocious. That dude said, he said, I'd eat your children. Tyson was something else. When he came on the scene, folks at that time too, it was just a situation where they were looking for the heir apparent, somebody to carry boxing the way Ali did in the 60s and 70s, and the way Ray Leonard did in the 80s. And Tyson comes along, and wow. I'm trying to understand. Bobby Henry said, speaking of ears, do you think Mike will be able to recognize the bill for him to enter the ring, or will he think he's crossing the street? Wow. And Power 96 pals on. He says Tyson is 5 cans short of a 6-pack. Wow, what's with this? Why y'all going in on Mike? Bobby Henry and Power 96 going in on Mike Tyson. Come on, he's the baddest man on the planet. Oh man, the guy was absolutely ferocious. Yeah, I do remember Mike V says last year on Spirit Air. Was it a Spirit Airlines flight that Tyson was on? Come on, Mike could do better than Spirit. He said the white guy tried to start some stuff with Tyson, and Tyson ran hands on. I do remember that, but I don't remember it being Spirit Airlines. What was he doing on Spirit Airlines? Was he considering buying the airline, and so he wanted to test it out? Listen, if somebody ever told you I was on Spirit Airlines, it must have been the biggest family emergency ever, and I had no friends or no family to give me a couple of dollars. Because that is just, whew, that's the Walmart of the air, the sky. Oh my gosh. Spirit Airlines? Yeah. And as I always say, right, next week I'll be saying, let it be known, brought to you by Spirit Airlines. Oh man. And Power 96, I'm going to give you the last word. He said I would pay big money to see Floyd versus Tyson in a spelling contest. Y'all are wrong this morning. Oh my gosh. It's Friday. That's why you're acting up. It just hit me. It's Friday. Listen, y'all, have a great weekend. Go to our YouTube site, please, and hit subscribe. Subscribe. There's the address. Subscribe, share it, tell your wife, tell your husband, tell your kids, tell your aunt, uncles, cousins, your enemies. Subscribe, and we'll see you again on Monday with more Let It Be Known. Thanks for watching.